getting ahead of your launch is building out a robust launch plan and executing on the plan. Make sure that your offer is telling your story and it's creating value. So the consumer is so drawn to it that they can't not buy it. And that was our goal with this spring of 23 launch. Utilize all your marketing media you can. We want you everywhere.
Women Who Own It podcast spotlights women business owners who are pioneers in their field, setting trends, blazing trails, and creating game-changing innovations. Brought to you by WeBank, the largest certifier of women-owned businesses in the U.S. and a leading advocate for women business owners and entrepreneurs. And me, Allison Maslan. I've been a business owner for the last 35 years. I'm the Wall Street Journal best-selling author of the book Scale or Fail. So join our bold community of women who built it, grew it, and own it. I'll see you on the show. Welcome to the fourth season of Women Who Own It podcast, where we are diving into the theme of momentum. This year, we are exploring how our network of women-owned businesses build and sustain momentum in their practices and operations, from developing successful strategies to overcoming obstacles and leveraging community support. Our guests will share their insights and experiences in driving growth and innovation. We hope to inspire you with practical tips on how to stay ahead of the curve in an ever-evolving market. So join us as we embark on this exciting journey of learning, discovery, and growth. I am your host, Allison Maslan. I'm the CEO and founder of Pinnacle Global Network, where we mentor CEOs all over the world to grow and scale their businesses. Now, speaking of growing and scaling and creating momentum, we have an amazing guest here today. And Camille Thomas is a recognized retail industry leader that has earned her reputation by working with innovative, diverse, and multi-size consumer product companies in both national and owned brands. Camille brings 35 plus years of retail knowledge in department and specialty stores, and as a Target Corp senior buyer and a Target director in digital commerce and new business development. Camille founded JMC Retail Group in 1996 and has worked directly with Target buyers, sourcing managers, inventory analysts, and creative teams across 25 plus categories. Camille and the JMC retail team are instrumental in identifying key supplier partners, evaluating and coaching for retail readiness in big box stores, specialty, and online retailers. She is the founding member of Women Presidents Organization, WPO, in Minnesota. She is also in JMC is WeBank certified and works diligently with minority and purpose-centered consumer product companies to drive innovative change while delivering sales and profitability. So, Camille, welcome to Women Who Own It.
Well, thank you, Allison. It's a pleasure to be here.
And, you know, your background in retail sales, this is information that me as a CEO and also our listeners, I know, want to learn from you. And you have expertise as a retail expert on both the retail and the wholesale side, which is so valuable. I would love to know a little bit about your journey that led you into running your own company in this arena.
Well, it all started when I was in 8th grade.
And you love to shop.
Yes, and I told my parents that I was going to be a merchandiser for Bloomingdale's. Now remember, this is a small town girl in South Dakota who decided that she was going to embark on a career in retail. So here we are, 30 some years later, and or actually a lot later, excuse me. But seriously, I did decide at a very young age that I wanted to be in retail. And I, at the same time, thought I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I knew I wasn't smart enough to be an entrepreneur until I got some corporate background. So I have a degree in merchandising and design and economics. I went to school in South Dakota. I went to school in New York City at FIT, came back, started in department stores, and basically moved over to Target. And I worked there for 9.5 years. Got that corporate experience, and one day just decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So in my early 30s, I left corporate America. Thought I would do this for 5 years, and here I am, 25 plus years later, still enjoying it, loving what I do. What is it that we do? I've done several things in this 25 years, but most importantly, I've been on the manufacturing side, I've been on the sales side, leading my teams. At one point, we had 3 companies. Today, I have one. And in 2017, I was certified as a woman owned business. As you noted, I've been actively involved in WPO. And when you ask about how did the journey unfold, it was really about commitment. I observed, I learned, I listened, and then I executed. So if you said in that order, I hope so. Not always, but the world of retail is fast and furious. The world of consumer brands is fast and furious. Innovation comes in waves. And fortunately, JMC has been a part of that for most of my career, basically. Either I've been in a big box or I've been on the other side.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. And you were clearly a woman on purpose starting in
That
the
is,
eighth grade,
yeah.
you know, and knowing. And I find, merchandising it really is an art. I think a lot of people are not aware of the intricacies of just that piece of retail. I grew up, my father built 50 women's clothing stores across the country. So I used to, as a little girl, go with him from store to store, and he'd walk in and move racks around and, all that kind of stuff. And it really is, you know,
And
there's so much there that can make an impact on the business. Camille, where do you find business owners get stuck or struggle when it comes to getting their products onto the retail shelves, and even, beyond that, expanding to several locations or regions,
mhm.
if that's applicable?
It's complicated today because we have so many platforms. We're all really tired of the word omni-channel, but omni-channel is the way we live. And I think there's three pillars that we talk about a lot with the struggles of launching a consumer brand or launching at a retail store or an online platform or any sort of a platform technically. And it starts with funding. You've got to have the financial resources to do this. However you choose to raise your capital or take out a loan, whatever method you use, you need to have the money to succeed. You need to surround yourself with experts. We see far too many times where a great idea takes experts to execute versus a great idea. And so we talk a lot about finding those experts to support your initiative. And then we also, as an entrepreneur, we see a lot of people thinking, I have to do it all. And we see an incredible amount of failures because I have to do it all. And we're all entrepreneurs, and that's very common for us to think, I can do this and I got this. And eventually you can't. It's a struggle when you are surrounded with experts and when you do have enough resources to succeed. So I would say those are the three things that we see most often.
Yeah, you really nailed it there. And, a lot of the business owners we work with, they struggle with that thing, letting go. Like you said, they have to feel like it has to be it all because they're so afraid that people will be making mistakes or things will be slipping through the cracks, when what's really happening is that they're choking the growth of the business, you know,
Absolutely.
by
We're all
having to have.
guilty of that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you have a method, your own method called retail readiness. And there's 4 pillars to this. Can you tell us about those pillars and how business owners would utilize them to make progress in breaking in and succeeding into the retail market?
Yeah, and it's not overly complicated. Again, I have found in my career, simple is best. Break it down, pull it apart, put it back together, and keep it simple. The four pillars that we really focus on is number one, financial. How secure are you? Because you have to produce product, and you don't just produce product for one cycle or one set or one retailer or one customer. You've got to have an ongoing inventory flow plan. You've got to have money to produce. You can't wait to produce the next product or production schedule until you get paid because you don't always get paid when you think you're going to. And a part of that is you've got to have financial resources for marketing. And we're going to get into that later today. But marketing is critical, and there's a lot that comes underneath the term marketing when we talk about success. Second is size of market. Is this a growing market? Is this a saturated market? Is this a declining market? You need to understand what you're up against and really, really data based decision making because I feel and we should or we could are not great terms when you're sitting in front of a retail buyer or trying to convince an investor that now is the time for your product to launch. So that's the second pillar. The third pillar is what are your competitors doing? Look at reviews and show how you can solve a problem that no one else is solving for. That is critical. And then fourth, when you show up in front of a retailer, any size, why you? You better be clear on your purpose, your innovation, your differentiation. So if you can answer those four questions and really, really prepare, you probably will get an audience. You may get that opportunity to hit that shelf or that website or that social media platform and succeed.
Yeah, I think that really does cover the gamut, and being prepared and really thinking those things through. That financial piece is such a big deal when you have that consumer goods product, whether you're buying it, importing overseas, or you're manufacturing. You've got to have the money to do that. And it's going to be a while before you get paid.
Yes,
And then you
a
got to be
very long
making,
one.
right? So that period of time can make or break a business owner if they're not prepared. Now, speaking of marketing, when it comes to marketing, Camille, you support with the pre-launch, the launch, and post-launch
Mhm.
with these business owners wanting to get into retail. Can you break down those three phases? Because I think most of them just kind of look at it as all one thing.
Right.
And so breaking down those three phases and why the business owner needs to prepare for all three separately.
Yeah, this is a big one. This is a very, very important part of your product, your innovation, your company, and your launch. So we talk a lot about the pre-launch when we're working with a client. And I think you're probably picking up on the fact that regardless of the retailer that we're going to, our prep work is intense. We are a strategic partner with you for success, profitability, and a win-win for you as well as the retailer. Having as much retail background as my everyone in my company has, we think like a retailer, but we show up like a manufacturer, and that is really important to the audience that we're presenting to. So the pre-launch is probably if your product, I'll pick a date, and we just happen to have a really successful program that we just wrapped up in spring of 23. But if we're launching in April, we want to have a plan already of a press release that launches the very day the product is set in a store or online. So we're working pre-launch on that whole press release and what does it look like. Second of all, we want to talk about paid influencers. Who are they? What are they? Where are they? Why are they important? So we will definitely help you navigate who to talk to, why they're important, and we'll share that with the retailer as well as with your own audience that will be influencing your brand. When it comes to launch day, now we're moving into that pre-launch launch, and they don't always separate individually because there will be overlap. There better be overlap because you're building up and you're creating all of this excitement. But we want to have like hero links lined up. And we want those to flow daily, weekly, and we want to make sure that we are being seen by as many viewers as possible. So we talk a lot about pre-launch, launch, and then post-launch. If I were looking at a social calendar, and again, we will work with your outside creative team. We will work with the retailers, in-store marketing team. Again, we're pretty good at this, and we will go day by day, and we will literally lay out with you, with your marketing team, with our retail team, what does your message say? How does it resonate with the guest that's shopping or the consumer that's shopping at that retailer? And we want to have a fresh message every day because it's your brand, it's your identity. So we work really hard to make sure that that comes across clear, concise, and timely. On launch day, we will move into the, let's say it's new at Target, new at Sephora, pick a retailer, but that's the day, the big day. And this is where details can get missed. And it's like, oh my gosh, we forgot this, or we did not do that. I've had too many stories of friends who'll come to me and say, the product didn't make it to the floor, or the message didn't make it to the marketing team, or the PR release didn't happen, and they don't work together. And I think we pride ourselves on best in class communication, execution, and again, as we've mentioned earlier, we're very clear on our process, so that we, unless there's an act of God, we really try to pull off the detail to make sure the execution is there. And then you come to launch day. What does that look like? It better look explosive. And one of the things that we work really hard on is finding the right bloggers, the right influencers. So there's that small buildup, then there's launch day. And we would try to find those bloggers and influencers that really align with your brand. And we use a benchmark. Do they have 100,000 followers or more? And if they don't, why is that important to use that blogger, that influencer, if they have 6,000 followers? Like, what's the difference? And is sometimes it's all about credible community, and we want to make sure that you're doing both. We're working on some really amazing brands for 2024. And these are the things that bring the success. And our goal is, if we're forecasting to sell 2 or 3 units per week per SKU, what if we could sell six? What if we could sell seven or 10? And again, now we're back to omni-channel. It doesn't always have to be in a store. It can be in a .com site. And now we're into the post section, and we don't want the drop off. We want to make sure we're holding that momentum. So we've got new messages, new stories to tell on that social calendar. So we don't just walk away and say, okay, now it's done. We want that longevity and that brand to live on. And hopefully we get a second and a third and a fourth launch based on the success that we've just created. I think there was one more thing I was going to share with you on marketing grants. I guess mostly in summary, we do evaluate. And I think that's the other critical component of this discussion is, you might think you know what to do, but did it work? Can you measure it? Are you open to react to the data? We find that sometimes a company will feel so strongly about what they think is going to happen that we have to really convince them that it did or did not happen. And then what do you do with that data? Because we want to make sure that we're using every platform to the best of its ability. In summary, I would tell you that getting ahead of your launch is building out a robust launch plan and executing on the plan. Make sure that your offer is telling your story and it's creating value. So the consumer is so drawn to it that they can't not buy it. And that was our goal with this spring of 23 launch. Utilize all your marketing media you can. We want you everywhere if it's possible. Have an incredibly
Yeah,
strong
that's
crafted message. And finally, what's the impact on your community and how do you translate that to the shelf? Your message has to look the same in store, online, on your social media platforms, so your brand identity carries itself forward.
wow. That's amazing. There's so many details, right? And there's so much that you said there, Camille. My mind is kind of blown here. I can't tell you how many business owners have come to me or my team and said, I'm launching something next week. What should I do? And
Right.
so I love that you really plan this way ahead of time. And
Mhm.
then the other thing that, because there are so many details and it is so important, so you want to be able to, you know, capitalize on every possible opportunity, but also getting clear goals. Like, what are we going after? What's the net that we want to achieve? What are the metrics that we want to
Mhm.
hit? And then you can, then you can reverse engineer that. But if
Right.
it's just,
We
I want to have a great launch, I want to, sell out our
right.
product, it has to be more clear than that. And then, like you said, if it's not happening, then what do we need to do? What's plan B? Or how do we shift gears?
Mhm.
And by having that kind of support through all these steps, wow, that is
And
so valuable.
and you should be able to measure by platform. We use 6 different media platforms with this spring launch in 23, and we can tell you that engagements at that site, 152,000 individual engagements. With influencers, we had 538,000 touch points. And then we used Facebook, we used LinkedIn, we used TikTok. I mean, I'm telling you, it was successful. Now it takes enormous amount of planning and attention to detail. It can be done, but you got to be all in. It's
Yeah.
not something that you do lightly.
Yeah, and I mean, you're putting so much into your brand, into developing these products, and trying to do all this on your own. You'll end up losing so much more, um,
Yes.
in not investing in yourself in that way. So now you also focus with your clients on building company brand assets. So we were talking a little bit about that with the reach and all
Mhm.
these omni channels. But what do you like? Is this can be overwhelming for, especially for new product out there, and kind of making their debut? What would you say are the most important brand assets needed to create that visibility that these companies need? Because there's so many choices, right? So what do you feel like is you have to have this?
We have three building assets that we firmly believe have to be pulled together before we can bring a brand to market, before we can go out and sell it, and before we can say, you know what, we can make this a successful program. Part of it, I mean, we're focusing a lot on brand, but there's also the back side of it, the logistics side of it. So once you get that brand out there, you've got to stay in stock. You've got to keep it on the shelf. You've got to refresh it. You've got to bring new in-store signing and new merchandise packaging. And again, I think a little bit down the road we're going to talk about that. But we want to, if we were to start just like clean slate, we want to talk about your branding deck and your capabilities. That's our benchmark. That's the beginning, right? Then from there, we'll talk about what does your online content look like? Because we all know we've got brick and mortar, we've got online. So are they the same? Are they different? Do you show up differently? Do you show up consistently? Uh,
Mm.
don't just bring one platform, bring multiple platforms. How do you show up? And then last but not least is what does your website look like? If I find your product, I'm going to go look at reviews. I'm going to want to understand what you are about from beginning to end about us, your products, your customer philosophy, your mission statements, all of those things matter today. And then finally, we will talk about your social media platforms and outlets and what does that look like. So again, you've got this building of company assets. It all begins with your product, your brand deck, and your capabilities.
Yeah, so powerful. And um, reviews are
Huge,
such a big deal.
huge.
And not just, are they good reviews, but how many reviews? Is that
Mhm.
something that you help as well? Because I think that can be a little bit overwhelming for business owners too. Or if they get a bad review, which happens,
Yep.
um, maybe something wasn't delivered right, or the cap fell off, or whatever. Is
Right.
that something that you help people navigate, and how?
We do. We manage, we physically cannot go in and make those changes if we're working with a brand and a retailer, but we monitor them and we have what's called scorecards. And we know what content has to be available on site for each of those scorecards. And then from there, we will monitor the reviews and we will alert our brands that we're working with about what we need to do to resolve a situation. Sometimes they're easier than others. And we do work with Bizarre Voice. We work with multiple platforms on reviews, seeding, and reviews, whether they're organic. There's lots of ways to get reviews. And we're actively involved in that on depending on the company and what they want from our company. So, but they are important. Everybody looks at reviews.
They do. They do. It is a form of marketing.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the consumer goods product companies that you work with, and there's so many marketing choices, so many marketing methods out there, more and more every day. And so for these businesses, what do you feel like we talk about, okay, these are your minimal brand assets we need, but also where do you feel are the, what's the best way for them to determine how to invest their money in their marketing
Mm-hmm.
to give them the most traction?
Uh, Again, it's going to vary on the product and the category, but there is nothing better than a clear and concise. Uh, I guess I call it a launch plan. I don't know if that's what everyone would call it, but that incorporates your POS signing, your packaging, your product. Many times it can even come down to your pitch deck. But many times everyone wants to share so much information that you're overwhelmed and it's not concise, it's not clear, and I have to back away because I don't get it. I don't understand. There is
Yes.
nothing better than communicating in a really, really clear, and I'll give you an example. We keep our pitch deck 7 to 10 pages. You cannot imagine the companies that, no, I've got to have 23 or I've got to have 27 or I've got to have 36. And it's like, well, you may not get that second meeting. Like you have to be so clear on your why. And if it takes you 27 or 37 pages, it might not happen. I'm not saying it couldn't, but it might not, just
Well, you
because it's
lose people because it's just,
too
it's
too much.
overwhelming.
And that's one of the biggest mistakes we see with new brands. Our sophisticated companies, they get it. But our new brands, they're so joyful, they're so excited, they're just so passionate about it that sometimes it's like, I have to share all of this. Well, you do, but maybe not on the first meeting. And so we want to really hit it out of the park with the launch plan as well as what we're communicating in that deck and in that package and in that in-store signing. And we do work with all of those levels of what we call your retail platform because you never know what merchant wants to see what. It's like, oh, show me your packaging. I just, or not today, but how would you merchandise this in store? What would you take out of the store? Why would I replace your? Those are the questions we prepare you for.
Mm.
And if you're not willing to dig deep and understand those answers, you're probably not ready for the retail meeting at that stage of the game. The other big mistake we see, as I keep bringing up, is know where your dollars are coming from and know where you're allocating them. That is really, really critical. If you have investors, if you have a buyer, those questions come up every day, every meeting, all day long. So know what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Gosh, so many important touch points, and really that clarity, that
Critical.
you're speaking about. There's a saying, a confused mind says no. And if they have to figure out, like if it's hard for them to figure out what it is you're selling,
Mhm.
then they're having to, not just make the decision whether they want to buy from you or carry your product, but also like, I don't even get this, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So that's big. And then you mentioned before I'm curious about this, the story, because I think stories, people remember stories. They're impactful. They can move a brand. How much is the story? How much of importance is that when they are pitching their product to a buyer or to an investor?
I think there's two. That's a very good question, and there's a twofold answer on that. The story is very, very important. You mentioned earlier, we work with a lot of purpose-driven companies. We have some amazing launches coming up over the back half of 2023 and into spring of 24 that we're very excited about. And I would say 50% of those brands and launches are new innovation or just another way of bringing product into the marketplace. And it's about their story and why it's important. Um, and when we can put together the deck and it talks about the why we are bringing the story, but not only are we bringing the story, we are bringing the product, we are bringing the design innovation, we are bringing the back end logistics, we've got the manufacturing, we've got the price, we've got the construction that is required because there's product specs for everything that you put on the shelf today, right? And compliance and testing is critical. So that is all part of the story. And there comes a point where if the story isn't innovative enough anymore, if it isn't differentiated enough anymore, you might need to change the story, right? And if you're in the cosmetics industry or you're in the beauty world or if you're in the food world, it's like how many drinks can you possibly put on the shelf, right? That make you feel good, that make you look better. And it's like those are the reasons why the story is important, but not always. So understanding that, and that's understanding the retail landscape and your competition as we go back to one of those pillars that we work really hard on.
Wow. This is really supportive information. So thank you for sharing all of this. Now, we talk a lot about scaling on this show, and that's something that we work with our clients on as well. What have you done within your company to scale and create momentum over the recent years in your business, Camille?
Hmm. That's a good question. I need to keep doing more, but anyway,
There's
it's
always
been
more.
there's always more. There's always more to learn and more to do. It's been a very interesting journey for me because in 2017, when I mentioned earlier that I had three companies and I had two business partners, and 2017 was a pivotal point for me. I wanted to become a woman-owned business for years, and I finally just made the decision. So I split up a very, very amenable split. My two business partners took two of the companies, and I kept JMC Retail Group. And I did that because I believed data was going to drive most of the decisions. And so we built an analytics platform. We've got an amazing PO process where we manage. We've got a forecasting tool that's second to none. And so we built a company out that was built on analytics and data, and as well as a creative team with a ton of retail background. We brought those together. We were certified, WeBank certified in 2018. And then we were flying high and COVID hit and we said, whoa, what is this all about? Believe it or not, the COVID couple of years were very, very strong for JMC. We did remarkably well. And then all of a sudden, we saw the world start to open up in a different way. And we saw entrepreneurs emerge that really they existed, but not to the degree. And so many people decided through COVID to take a different path. And we were lucky. A lot of them approached JMC. So we're working with a lot of new companies. But we also saw large companies shift into a different direction as well. And we lost two of our major clients, which was a big hit for us. And so we had to really reposition ourselves and say, what are we doing here? How does this fit together? Because we've got a whole new world that we're dealing with. We've got all these startups, we've got all these minority and women owned and purpose driven companies. And that's what we are. We didn't set out to be that in 2017 and 2018, but that's what we are. And how do we engage that audience and bring a lot of these companies to the forefront? And it's been a beautiful thing because we started working with the diversity teams in multiple retailers. And I think in 2024, you will see some great things. But we're also maintaining purpose-driven companies that are 30 and $40 million at cost. And those partnerships are thriving. So we've been able to find a delicate balance between the small, the medium, and the large. And each one of those companies has a reason for being in our portfolio. Is it easy? No, it's been hard. 2023 has been a very hard year because you've got inventory that came in post COVID that nobody needed anymore. You have inventory that you couldn't get out of these countries. So everything turned upside down. And so my team, our process, our people, our talent had to really um, say together, this is our goals. This is how we're going to deliver on every relationship we have, whether it's at retail or on the manufacturing side. And this is the process we're going to use. And it's working. It's been a really dig deep, reposition, move forward kind of a year for us.
Wow. Talk about overcoming obstacles and keeping that momentum going. And for retail, especially, because, just thinking back with COVID, at first, when everything shut down, everyone was like, oh my God, like
This is
there's
it.
no business to be had. And then it was, okay, how do we get creative and get the products to the customers? And then, people started really buying, especially online. I know I was buying lots of shoes that I couldn't wear when I was bored sitting at my computer, but that, I was finally wearing afterwards. But then you're exactly right. I think that sort of how we measured things during the pandemic, things completely changed afterwards again. So I would imagine that has been a time of reinvention for you
It,
over and
the
over.
over and over. And what happened is that you were forecasting and reforecasting and forecasting and reforecasting because when COVID hit, everybody pulled back. And then it was like, oh my gosh, everybody's shopping online. Everybody's running into these two or three retailers outside of food, right? The grocers but
Yes.
so we literally had to chase quantities from all over. Then you had a container shortage. Then all of a sudden you've got an economy that's starting to struggle and you've got inflation on top of inflation on top of inflation. So you're trying to maintain costs. You're trying to resource. How can we skin it differently to hold retails? Well, we can't. Now we've got and we're still living that today, by the way. That is, again, with our best partners, we are perpetually trying to figure out where we can get the best cost, the best production, the best partners, the best deliveries. All of those things matter, especially to that retailer who's trying to really show their guests that they are a value partner or they are an innovative partner. I mean, there's just so many things to consider,
Yes.
and COVID made that very hard, and the economy has made that very hard.
Yeah. Well, I think that what you just shared is a perfect example of what business owners have to do. Like
Mhm.
everything's changing, and today is old news
Today's
tomorrow.
today. That's right.
Yeah, right. So you have to be thinking way ahead. You have to be willing to pivot, all
Yeah.
these things that you're talking about to stay relevant, and even with the economy changes, it's going to go up, it goes down, and being careful that, because there's a lot of opportunity when the economy goes down. There's a lot of things that you can negotiate. There's so many opportunities, especially if there are brands that are pulling back.
Hmm.
You can really leverage that and be, out in front. So I
Right.
appreciate you sharing that experience because I think a lot of business owners can relate to that.
Yeah.
And becoming certified by WeBank was a very good move. I know it was for us when we did, probably around the same time that you did. How
Okay.
has your certification with WeBank helped you to grow your business over this time?
I think what it's done for us is initially when we were first certified, it was a personal goal. Having been a female, pushing hard, working hard, it just was a personal goal. As I got into WeBank and I learned more and more and got um, what would I say, more involved, I guess is the bottom line. And Target pulled me in. There's very few companies in the nation that do what we do. And I learned a lot about WeBank and its purpose and what it could do for my networking, for our vision. There was just so many ways, and I've been a part of WPO for years, as you mentioned earlier. I was a founding member in Minnesota, so I was very much aligned with the leaders in our state, the female leaders, and I was less familiar with WeBank. I started participating. I was on some panels. I started meeting other women, and I could recommend, well, this is a brand specialist. This is a packing specialist. And I started building that network. And we have continued to do that to this day. It's like all of a sudden my eyes have been opened up to all the brilliance and the talent and the opportunities that WeBank supports that we've now gone to our second conference, which has been amazing. And we will continue to do that. I wish I would have done it earlier, but I'm just glad I did it when I did. So I think we only see a bright future for WeBank and for our involvement in it.
Yeah, no, it's so invaluable in so many ways, this organization, and working together, collaborating with the other women business owners, with the corporations, you're only going to get to where you want to go so much faster and easier.
I hope
So,
so.
yeah, no, and you know what you do is unique, Camille, with JMC is very unique. Being in the business world and having that knowledge in retail. So I think this is everything you've shared has been so beneficial. Where can people reach you for more information?
You will find us. We've got our website, jmcretailgroup.com. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Instagram. We're always looking for improvement and how we're going to, find more avenues of connections. As I said, we just started attending the WeBank conferences in the last couple of years post COVID. But we've got the pretty standard baseline connections. You can, our cell phones if you want to call me. Um, we're always available. We've got a great, talented team of people that,
Yeah, wonderful.
yeah,
Well, I highly recommend it for those of you that are listening that have a consumer goods product, or just want to learn more about getting into the retail space. And this has been so fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and wisdom. Any last words of advice to our listeners today?
I think just know your why, know your purpose. I gave that some thought when I was preparing for this talk today. And I think if I had to wrap this up, I have 7 or 8 pillars that I believe in. You can tell I use that word a lot because it's sort of my guardrails of running, owning, and leading a business as well as in my personal life. But I think show up with the best attitude in the room, right? Second of all, commit. Commit to who you are and why you're there. Third is honesty. Just just be honest with yourself and with the people that you surround yourself with. Ethics, they're really important today. That I think there's this fear that we've lost our way. Be the one that shows up every day ethically and honestly. Respect, respect for everyone in the room. Not everyone knows what you know, but a lot of people know more than you know. Calculated risk. Understand the consequences of your decisions. I think that's super, super important. Don't assume. Really try to think it through. And then know your strengths and hire well. I have the most talented team, and I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not. And being honest about that is very important.
You know, all of that is such great advice, and really how you show up is a big part of your brand.
Mm.
And so I appreciate you being here on Women Who Own It today. Camille, thank you so much. Excited for everybody to experience you and all of
Thank
your
you.
wisdom.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So if you enjoyed the show and you loved it, please write a review. It makes a difference, and share it with other women business owners that you care about. And if you want to learn more about how to scale your company, I actually want to send you a gift, which is my Wall Street Journal best-selling book, Scale or Fail. We're going to send you a hard copy right to your mailbox. And so all you need to do is go to scaleorfail.com/WBENC, and we will send it to you free of charge as our gift. And until next time, make decisions from where you're going, not from where you're at. We'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.